Welcome to KMET 1490 AM ABC News Radio and the Southern California Business Report, a show dedicated to highlighting successful Southern California businesses and the people behind them, with Daryl McCance and Yvette Walker. And now, here's Daryl and Yvette.
Thank you for joining the Southern California Business Report on ABC News and Talks KMET, AM 1490, KMET TV, with Yvette Walker and myself, Daryl McCance. We are live broadcasting our signal from the center of Southern California. To the west, we have Inland Empire and the greater LA area. To our east, we have the Desert Empire, all the way down to San Diego. Going south, Temecula Valley, all the way to Orange County, and north, our beautiful mountain communities, all the way to state line. Get us crystal clear live worldwide by going on to Google Play or Apple Store and download the free KMET smartphone app. We focus each week on successful businesses in Southern California and the people behind them, serving the local population of nearly 25 million. From awe-inspiring sole proprietorships to world-renowned organizations in all sectors of our economy. Today's show focuses on the business and secrets of Southern California in the area of real estate, both commercial and residential. Before we begin today, a special thank you to our team at the station, Mitch, Bill, and Sean, and our advisory group from University of California Irvine School of Business, Bill Morris, Jay Kaplan. Make sure to catch his show every Friday at 3 p.m. drive time. Nina Rubio, Diana Cavallo, and James Carvin. From, as customary, Yvette, if you would be so kind to introduce this week's special guest. I have to confess, I've known this person. By the way, we talk about from awe-inspiring sole proprietorship to world-renowned organizations. This is the very definition of somebody who's truly built from the ground up into a massive organization that's affecting all around Southern California. And with that, I'm going to ask Yvette to do the honors and introduce today's guest.
Well, thank you so much, Daryl. It is my absolute honor and pleasure to introduce today Mr. Michael G. Rademaker. He is founder and CEO of MGR Property Management, MGR Real Estate, and MGR Services, all businesses based in the Inland Empire. Michael first entered the real estate market at 19 years old, fueled by an insatiable desire to learn and a commitment to provide a unique yet superior product for his clients. Michael is no stranger to the Inland Empire and now owns and operates one of the leading residential and commercial real estate sales, leasing, and management companies in Southern California. Over the decades, Michael has helped clients successfully grow their real estate investment portfolios while providing an unparalleled perspective on the Inland Empire. That success has powered MGR's remarkable growth across the region with offices in Ontario, Victorville, and Carlsbad. Michael and his team provide expert advice on a multitude of residential and commercial investments. These include multifamily apartments, office, retail, industrial, land, condominiums, hotels, and restaurants, as well as other business opportunities. Such an honor to have you here with us today, Mr. Rademaker. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for that introduction. I really don't know what to say. To be introduced that way makes me flattered and very humble. Thank you.
Well, you've made it, and to those that are just tuning in, we're here with founder and CEO of MGR Properties, based here in Southern California. Their corporate office is just minutes away from the Ontario International Airport. But as Yvette Walker just said, you can be in the Desert Empire. By the way, Mr. Rademaker, I love that term. When you look at the beautiful Palm Springs and La Quinta and Cathedral City and Indian Wells and on, the whole Coachella Valley is now going by the name the Desert Empire. And then you have been instrumental in developing, I see your signs everywhere, the famous blue and white MGR signs, from the desert communities to Orange County, to LA County, to the Inland Empire. So if you could just kind of tell us, go back in time, and for the audience, I've known Mr. Rademaker for decades. I both respect and admire him I've learned so much from seeing what can really, it's one of those examples, and Yvette and I focus on success stories and what's working in Southern California, who has figured it out. And that's the very definition of Mike Rademaker. So if you could just go down memory lane a little bit, Mike, and let us know how your organization started, and then we'll bring it right up for the listeners right to this moment. So take us back in time to the beginning.
I think that, going all the way back, it's very difficult. But I remember when I was 19 years old, I had the opportunity of visiting with my aunt in Santa Monica. And back in the 70s, everybody going off to college isn't the same as today. It was more of an honor than, a requirement. And when I was talking to my aunt, we talked about what I was going to do for my future. And she had said that, many of the nieces and nephews were all going to be CEOs. They were going to be doctors and lawyers and very successful and very smart people. And she really shocked me when she said that I wasn't quite that smart. And she says,
I think she's eating her words now.
she says, I don't think that's who you're going to be. She says, I thought long and hard about it, Mike. She says, you're a nice guy and people like you and you like to talk to people. So she suggested that I go into real estate. She says, because if you go into real estate and you're nice to people and you tell the truth, that's all you really have to do. She says, you don't have to be that smart. You don't have to be a doctor or a lawyer to tell the truth. All you have to do is look up the answer and always give the same answer to everybody. And when they call you, they'll learn to respect you. And she says, over a course of time, you'll develop a good list of clients. They'll get to know you, like you, trust you, tell a family member and friends. And that's kind of how I started the company. And now over the course of the years, we've successfully grown into, multiple offices, multiple locations, hundreds of people working with us as a team. And it really helped me understand the simple importance, of what it takes to be successful, which is, I think that, we talked briefly about it before. My aunt taught me some very simple things. She told me that when you go to work, she says, answer your phone. She says, just answer it. Say hello. Whatever they say, talk to them. She said, when you have an appointment, she says, be on time. And more importantly, she says, if you tell the truth, these are the only 3 things that you need to know to be successful. 40-some years later, it hasn't changed much. Maybe we're supposed to answer our emails or our texts, but it's still our form of communication. And
absolutely.
That's kind of the foundation of how we started MGR, which is on those 3 simple premises. And we built it into a fairly successful company today.
Yeah, well, I tell you, the great advice, and as a customer, effectively, of Mr. Rademaker, being in one of his beautiful buildings, which we'll talk about more in a minute, it's one thing to say something, it's another thing to do it. And to see his organization so proactive, and the air conditioning was replaced with a new air conditioning before the old air conditioning would ever break. They were so preventative and making sure everything was as clean as a whistle, and the parking lots looked like brand new at all times, and the landscaping looked like it was brand new at all times. It's just amazing to try to stay on top of things. And whenever you go into these beautifully managed properties, that's the definition of what you've built there. And so I think your aunt gave you great advice. Yvette and I are always trying to get secrets, and we're just barely into our interview, and we've already got 2 secrets. Number 1, just tell the truth always. And number 2, answer that phone, which is obviously driving everybody crazy nowadays, where they're getting voicemails or emails, or, Mike's famous for picking up his phone. And that's one of the things that I've noticed with all the successful people. They pick up their phones. And we've talked about that many times, Mike, that every time I call Yvette Walker, she picks up her phone. I call you, you pick up your phone. It's really a trait of really successful people. Now, with the footprint that you now have of these beautiful properties that you either own or manage throughout Southern California, tell us why you're so bullish on the Inland Empire.
I think that I don't think I started out, I don't think anybody wakes up and says, I want to go live in the Inland Empire. When I was a young man, we lived in Huntington Beach. And when I was a junior, and I was in junior, I was really happy. I lived at the beach, three blocks from the ocean. And my dad said, we're moving to the Inland Empire. I wasn't too sure I knew where that was, but I ended up in Montclair, California. Not the way I wanted to start my high school years. I think moving out here from the beach area, and I've been here since, I think, 69, it's been a real opportunity for me to see how the Inland Empire has grown. I listened to the stories and to the things that people were talking about and what was supposed to happen about the Inland Empire. When they talked about the 60 freeway coming in, then they talked about the 210 freeway. They talked about, the airport growing. And I guess I heard it long enough going to school out here and growing up in here that I started believing it. I started believing that the Inland Empire was the new Tomorrowland. It was the new Irvine. You have Wilshire Boulevard in LA, which was quite the thing many, many years ago. And people from the Inland Empire and San Gabriel Valley went into LA and built it. Then Irvine developed. And Irvine became very successful. Then I realized that Ontario is just like LA and just like Irvine, except for a few differences. One, it has an international airport, which is a key to success, transportation. We had more freeways, more accessibilities, and more importantly, we had probably more affordable housing. So when I started looking at the Inland Empire and people were talking to me about going and launching my career in other areas, I kept realizing that the Inland Empire was value for the money. It was a safe town. I really believe overall, the Inland Empire, the local officials, the cities, the police, the fire, they're effective. I think the schools are good. And I think the people that live in the Inland Empire are, as a general force, very old-fashioned, traditional people that just want to have a good family value. So when you look at the solidness of the Inland Empire, you look at the airport, you look at the growth, you look at all the freeways, it's a prescription for success. And I think it's just now being cashed. For all these years, they've talked about the Inland Empire. And it was always the joke. It was always this. It was always that. But the Inland Empire is the new Southern California. I think it will be and has become one of the leading areas to work, live, and will become even more so in the next 10, 20 years. So I'm very happy and bullish to have had faith in it when nobody wanted to be here, especially in 08 and 09.
Absolutely.
I think you're ahead of your time. When you look at the beautiful convention center, the beautiful new Porsche dealership, and the beautiful new Mercedes dealership, and the beautiful Victoria Gardens, and as we talked about the desert communities and the mountain communities, and the station was established in 1942, and everybody is amazed at how the growth has come out. And we have the third largest population of millennials in the entire nation. Our international airport is the only airport in the nation, or on the West Coast rather, that's allowed to receive the vaccine for the pandemic that's been a major concern. So now, when describe the properties that you own, because I mean your properties are just beautiful. We're talking high rises, just beautiful buildings. Regardless, you could set your building anywhere in the nation, and people would walk in and say, "Wow, this is a beautiful, beautiful property." What is it that you look at when you're looking to put properties in your portfolio? And if there's anything more you want to say on your bullishness of the Inland Empire, even though I know you've got properties all over Southern California, go right ahead.
I think that over the course of the last 5 years, we've constantly looked at expanding our marketplaces and buying properties in other areas. And kind of the standing joke around the company is every time Mike goes to Irvine or San Diego or Arizona or any place to buy a property, he's going to buy another one in Ontario. Because after I go and look every place else and I come back to Ontario, it just makes me smile. I love the town, I love the area, and I love the buildings. I've been very fortunate that back in, the late 80s, 90s, 2000, there was a lot of nice Class A office buildings built in and around the airport area. And over a course of time, I've been fortunate enough to acquire the greater majority of it. And it's allowed me the opportunity of preserving the integrity of the buildings. And I think that's more important. What I've tried to do is not change what they were, but keep them to the way they were designed, to make sure that they're as beautiful today as they were when they were started. Things change, and we tried to make our buildings change, but not the core appearance. We have to change our technology. We have to change our heating, our air conditioning. We have to change our elevators, but we can still make the buildings, when you walk in, you smile. To me, sometimes you go into these brand new luxury buildings that they got so much zing and zang. It's not the same as me having just a good old fashioned quality building that you look at and you like. So I've been fortunate I try to buy the best buildings, and I buy the best buildings because I probably pay the most money for them at the time in which I buy them, and
Right.
see things differently. I'll pay the price for quality each and every time.
Absolutely. And I think that attitude and that vision is aligned with the region's overall approach to how it not only develops its industrial areas and its manufacturing areas and residential areas. When you talk about a sustainability and implementing a long-term vision, that's one of the things I think that has set the Inland Empire apart, in the sense that it grew and it is growing, but it's growing in a very smart and very thoughtful way, in a way that is going to attract the best of the best when we're talking about employees. We have Fortune 500 companies right here in Ontario, in the surrounding communities, Fontana, Upland, and, just the thoughtfulness of planning the communities, the infrastructure, the long-term vision and goals for a sustainable growth, I think is going to attract, a lot of millennials. We're the third largest population of millennials. And I think, the further we go down the line, the more attracted they're going to be. And I see a lot of office space, filling up for MGR. What is your vision for the next 5 years with all of those wonderful assets here in the Inland Empire to help promote a wonderful quality of life and work-life balance? You have the mountains, you have the desert, you have the ocean, you have everything within 45 minutes. What say you, Mr. Rademaker?
I think that the pandemic has probably made me think and rethink, the office market many times. We're in a changing workforce. Today, we have more and more people working from home. We have more and more people wanting to work from home. And I think more and more companies wanting their employees to come back to the office. So there's going to be kind of a balance that's going to come forward for the next several years. But I think the Inland Empire is going to benefit from that, because what's happening is that we're seeing an increase in subleasing and vacancies in the larger LA, Orange County marketplaces. But as of yet, we have not seen it in the Inland Empire. Companies that have employees that are commuting an hour and a half to 2 hours each way to work, their employees are now living in the Inland Empire and not wanting to commute and wanting to work from home. A natural balance is to have an office in the Inland Empire. I think that there's going to be an influx, and we're seeing a lot of companies out of LA, Orange, and other areas wanting to come closer to where the workers are, where the buildings aren't as tall, where the confusion isn't as bad, and the risk of the virus is less. That's my immediate perception of what's going to happen. With our existing inventory, we're in the mid to high 90% occupancy rates across the board, and we have not sustained any real issues with this current market. We're very, very bullish on the current market, and quite honestly, there's probably going to be a high demand for additional buildings. I think the buildings all over LA and Orange, although they're having some vacancies, it'll probably get, unfortunately, maybe a little bit worse. And in the Inland Empire, part of my goal and objective will be to work closely with the cities, and I'm in direct talks on building more office buildings right in the middle of when everybody thinks everything's going crazy. Our goal is to try to come out of the ground with new buildings, maybe in 22 or 23, and delivering the product when the market is in full swing. The Inland Empire is definitely the new heart of Southern California.
Isn't that great?
That's
For those
wonderful.
that just tuned in, we are on with CEO and founder of MGR Real Estate. We are about to go to break here shortly, but I want to, before we do, Mike, if you could talk about your team. I know there's some exciting things going on there. If you could talk a little bit about the departments and divisions and the people that you're relying on, and any new executives that you've got there in development. The floor is yours.
I think, having started the company over 40 years ago, I was always that big, strong guy that said I can do it all. And I would hire a lot of people to work under me, but I don't think I had them working with me. I think that I kept hiring people feeling I was the big dog. And it was about 10, 12 years ago, I had the opportunity, of learning a great deal. Lynn and Janet, who joined my team at that point, taught me the very value of the word team. Not the idea of me and a bunch of people working under me, but the idea of team. That we have to all work together and we all bring something special to the table. When I had my company initially, we had a lot of people that I hired that were all 10, 20 years older than me, and they helped us grow to a certain extent, and they all retired in 2008 and 9, and I found myself in a real bad spot. We've now gone to, I think, a multi-generational approach to management and leadership, where the word team involves people from all generations, all walks of life, to give input to the company. We have people, that are in their 80s on our team, 70s, 60s, 50s, 40s, 30s, and quite honestly, my daughter has recently graduated from San Diego State in the last few years, and Dana has now joined our team, and hopefully she will bring us to the next level of doing it. But when I talk about people on the team, the list can go on. When Lynn and Chang came on, she has now become one of Southern California's leading commercial brokers. That in itself, in the females to break into a male-dominated business was extremely difficult for her. We've come along, and we have Tony, Hermosillo in my commercial division, Randy Sanchez. We have the list of people that go on that you don't even know where to start now that I've understood the word team. I work right now probably a lot of long hours, but I don't have as many problems as I did when I used to think it was me. Now that I've gotten into that, team concept, there's just more people to spread the responsibility, and it's given me a better chance to lead. And hopefully I can pass on that wisdom, to other people. That it is about team, and there is there's no other way that I can describe it from that. But I enjoy that word, and I didn't understand it the first 25 years in the business, but I've truly understood the importance of being able to pass the ball off and know that it's safe.
Well, that's a transition from an awe-inspiring sole proprietorship to building a major organization. So, and you've certainly done that. When we come back, we'll talk about the size and scope. You've got a massive organization. We'll go into that in a little bit more detail. We're going to go to break. We are here today with Michael Rademaker, CEO and founder of MGR Real Estate, commercial and residential, and probably one of the more powerful people in all of Southern California on those topics. And we will be right back.
Join Daryl McCance and Yvette Walker every Tuesday at 3 p.m. on ABC News Radio, KMET 1490 AM, and on the internet at KMET TV for the Southern California Business Report. The show is dedicated to highlighting successful businesses and the individuals behind them. Daryl and Yvette interview the incredible people managing these enterprises that range from awe-inspiring sole proprietors to world-renowned organizations. The Southern California Business Report, Tuesdays at 3 p.m. on KMET AM and on the internet at KMET TV.
Take KMET 1490 AM with you everywhere you go by downloading our free smartphone apps found on the KMET website, KMET1490am.com. You can also go to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store on your phone to download the free app. Now you can listen live or play any of your favorite programmers' podcasts using your smartphone. Go to KMET1490am.com and download your free phone app today.
Hello, listeners. This is Christopher from The Christopher Show. Hey, if you missed one of our shows here at KMET, don't worry about it. You can go to our webpage, and that's KMET1490am.com. Go to the homepage, click on the SoundCloud tab, and hear any show anytime you want.
Check out the online California Youth Leadership Summit on Saturday, February the 6th from 2 to 5 p.m. Topics for the high school and college panels include climate change, racial equality, gender equity, world peace, and coping with the pandemic. Panel moderators include such celebrities as former NFL quarterback Mark Sanchez and Guinness World Record-holding mountaineer Marin Minamia. It's open to all ages. To register for free, visit www.californiasummit.org. That's www.californiasummit.org. Check us out online at KMET1490am.com.
You're listening to the Southern California Business Report on KMET Radio, 1490 AM, Ontario, Rancho Cucamonga, Redlands, and Palm Springs. ABC News Radio.
Welcome back to the Southern California Business Report on ABC News and Talks, 1490 AM. We're blasting our signal from the center of Southern California with the Inland Empire and LA to our west, the Desert Empire, San Diego to our east, and Orange County. We got Temecula Valley to our south. We don't want to forget our mountain communities all the way to the state line to our north. We are here today with Michael Rademaker, CEO and founder of MGR Real Estate, and they are headquartered just a few minutes from the Ontario International Airport, and they have their properties that they manage and own all over Southern California. It's hard to go anywhere without seeing that blue and white sign, which we should probably talk about here before we get too much further into it. We've got some other little secrets in the first portion of the show. Mr. Rademaker talked about the first secret, which is always tell the truth. And when he was 19 years old, his aunt shared that with him, that that's what he needs to do. And the other recommendation was make sure you answer your phone, and those were the big two. So we got another secret coming up here in a minute. But Mike, just talk a little bit about that sign. Give us a little update. How'd you come up with that sign? How would you ever, in a million years, come up with MGR? Is that short for manager? Does that, how'd you come up with that? Did you go and do a search on Google to find the best three letters available that would represent the industry? Tell us.
I think that it's kind of embarrassing because, when I originally came up with the name, I had a little landscaping company.
Okay.
And I couldn't figure out what name to come up with it. Every name I searched was taken. So I just used my initials, Michael G. Rademaker. And it originally was a landscaping and a janitorial division of my company, which when I was working at a real estate company. When I went off on my own and decided to run my own real estate company, well, I thought it was just easier to keep using MGR services because I didn't have to order any new stationery. And so it just ended up becoming, it was originally landscape janitorial, it became real estate, and then it kind of developed off from there. Ironically, we ended up becoming a significant management company, and MGR actually stood for manager. So, and ironically, it just happened probably more by mistake than anything else. And so there was no real.
So you're telling me that it's your initials?
It's my initials. It's all it is.
I love it. I love it.
It just worked out, ended up being manager.
I love it. I love it.
Well,
And
that all goes in line with the SMART approach and keeping it simple, as you've outlined and demonstrated, just with the first two secrets that you shared with us. Tell the truth, pick up the phone, very simple, but it works. So what have been the keys to MGR's success over the years, in addition to the SMART and simple approach? Can you share with us why you believe companies easily find homes in your buildings, and why do they enjoy working with your team as much as they do?
I think we realize that, tenant retention is very important. And we, it's so easy to, get a tenant to move into your building, and sometimes it's very hard to keep them. And we've learned that a lot of owners, it's almost like, I learned this when I leased my first copy. I leased it for 5 years, and the salesman didn't care anything about me until 2 months before the lease was up. And then he wanted to lease me another machine. And then I was stuck for the rest of the time being unhappy. So with my tenants, I realized that I start working on the lease renewal the day they sign. So when you sign your lease today, I'm already earning chips so that I don't have to fight for the next renewal. So when you move in, I try to make sure it's extra special. When you have a problem, I try to show up and fix it. If the problem is something that has aggravated you, I try to show up personally or send a senior member of my staff to go there personally and apologize to you, for the inconvenience that you had with your staff. Even if it's minor, it's the thing that makes a difference. We truly want to take a we care approach, because we do care. It's so much easier to keep a tenant than it is to try to find a new one. And, I've had so many tenants that have grown with me over the years, and we've developed some of the concepts of the Irvine Company. When somebody's in one of my buildings, if they need to expand, we can expand you irregardless of your lease term. We'll work it out. But also, in 2008, when a lot of companies were suffering, we reduced their spaces and reduced their lease responsibilities, and we ate the difference to make sure that they could survive. I think I'm a partner with all my tenants.
Wow.
I truly do. I care about their businesses, and ironically, they end up caring about mine.
Well, I think it's a very basic concept. You treat people well, and you are treated well in response. And one of the things that I really enjoyed talking to you about was the whole checks and balances with your team as you delegate, I'm sure just an overwhelming amount of responsibilities that are included with managing these properties. But, knowing that every one of these tenants has your phone number, but your phone seldomly rings, says a lot about the responsiveness and the follow through that your team has in, addressing needs, questions, all of those things. So I really enjoyed that story. Can you please share with us how many times a day do you get a phone call with the countless tenants that you have?
Initially, my phone used to ring off the hook pretty constantly. And that's when I thought I had to do everything. I spent the first 25 years of my life thinking that everything revolved around me. When I learned a little bit about the concept of teamwork and depending on my staff to do a good job and rewarding them with either pay or congratulations or just a smile, ironically, the number of calls started going down. I met with each tenant, as many as I could. I'd say over 90% of my tenants I meet with individually when we sign the leases. And I give the signer of the lease my business card with my cell number on it. And I tell them that I really don't want him to ever call me on my cell phone for problems. But if your staff calls my staff and for whatever reason the work isn't getting done and it ends up coming to you, and you need to get it off of your desk in a hurry so that you don't have a problem with your staff, call me on my cell phone right in front of them. And I'll make sure something happens immediately. Ironically, as that started happening, my staff knows that there's an accountability.
Yes.
So ironically now, I don't get very many phone calls. If I get 1 or 2 calls a week, I'd be shocked. I'd probably go 1 or 2 calls a month. And it's really not that bad when they call. But it's usually somebody trying to get somebody off their case because somebody's complaining. The office is 73 degrees instead of 72 when it's 114 outside. There's sometimes I do have limitations on what we can fix. But I've really found that by rewarding our maintenance guys, rewarding every single vendor, with the congratulations and saying thank you. In the morning, I meet with my maintenance crews. I say good morning to them. I say hello. I walk around with them because I'm only as good as the weakest link in my team. And so I spend a lot of time making sure that I don't have weak links and my phone don't ring. Except
Imagine that.
You did great.
That's what's important when they want to expand.
For those that are just tuning in, we're with CEO and founder, MGR Real Estate, Michael Rademaker. And Mike, I want to follow up a little bit and go a little more detail. Yvette mentioned your wisdom many decades ago to see the Inland Empire before most didn't. And as you said, a lot of people had a good chuckle. The old famous radio announcer that enjoyed talking about Cucamonga and just kind of fun. People had good fun. They knew it was beautiful, but they had good fun. And as we've seen, many decades ago, if you weren't on Wilshire Boulevard, that was the address, just as you said earlier. And then we saw it migrate to the beautiful Lake Avenue in Pasadena, moving to another one of our neighborhoods, which is San Gabriel Valley. Absolutely beautiful, gorgeous. And then ultimately to Irvine, and now out to the whole Ontario and the Inland Empire and the Desert Empire and all the surrounding communities that are supporting that. So talk to us a little bit about your market share and how I don't want to, put you on the spot where you feel like you're bragging, but just tell us how MGR is comparing, especially as a privately owned. Is there anything in the entire region, the size of your organization, with regard to how you have it structured?
I think that I kind of, without sounding too important, I try to mimic a little bit about how I structured my company after the Irvine company. Obviously at a much smaller scale, but at one time they were my size as well. Not everybody starts out big. But the Irvine company developed the concept that they picked an area and they focused on it and they took care of their clients and they grew. We decided to focus a lot on initially the upland, Ontario marketplace. And slowly we worked our way over to, I always wanted to be on Haven and Gloucester and Concourse and be where all the big fancy buildings were. And I remember I met with some other senior brokers at some national firms. And they told me as a local independent company, it was going to be impossible for me to ever break through and be hired as a leasing or a management company at a national level property with institutional landlords. And they explained to me it's because they need, the protection of a strong team. So I thought about that and it kind of broke my heart a little bit. But I did realize that there was one thing that institution would do with me. They would sell me their property if I paid more money than anybody else.
Nice.
So I decided that if they wouldn't hire me, I'd buy them. So I slowly came together and started acquiring a number of properties, initially up in the upland, then Foothill Boulevard, Rancho Cucamonga. And I slowly worked my way down Haven Avenue, taking buildings off at Arrow Highway, working my way down the 6th Street, getting down on the Commerce Center, and then eventually getting the big 6-story right there on the 10 freeway in Haven, which was probably the big monument to our growth. And ironically, if you ever drive through the Inland Empire, come in the airport, you see these big MGR initials on the top of this building, and everybody assumes that that's my office building. No, it's not. It's just my initials on top.
It's just your newest acquisition.
It was my initials on top of the building, and it became where a lot of people thought, well, he's never going to make it now. He's gone too big. He's pushing it. Slowly over the next 5 or 10 years, I acquired probably 85% of the Class A office market in the Ontario area.
Wow. We
purchased off of all the major institutions, coming in and making acquisitions as 15, 20, 30, some as high as 75, $80 million, putting together, groups of family and friends and acquiring large commodities of properties. Right now, we pretty much have the dominant control of the Ontario airport office market, not out of arrogance, but just out of maybe stupidity at the time when I was the only person who wanted to buy these buildings. Now I get approached on a regular basis by institutions trying to buy 500,000 to 1 million feet of office space at a time from me. And the answer is always no. I love my city. I love the Inland Empire. And if anything, our next acquisition will probably be the development of a 500,000 square foot office campus, which will be the first person crazy enough to do that in the Inland Empire, because we'll have the footprint of a lot of offices that we can allow to move into my new buildings, and I can let them out of their old leases because that's all part of the same family. So I've slowly acquired, and I want to become strong in Ontario, in Rancho Cucamonga, and Upland, and Aquanel Warren, our favorite mayor in Fontana, is pushing me towards Fontana, and it's a beautiful city with a lot of wisdom in its leadership. We just want to be the biggest and the best family-run business in the Inland Empire that we can be. We're not the Irvine company, but we are an MGR company, and we have learned a lot from great people like Randall Lewis, who's a good friend of mine, and he's been on your show, and he's taught me a great deal about family and value. And he said to me, he said, Mike, you've got to think about what's your legacy going to be. And I'll tell you, when he said that to me, I immediately responded with, well, I'm going to have the biggest and baddest buildings. I'm going to have this, I'm going to have that. And he sat there with me at lunch, and he must have said it to me 3 or 4 times. And he says, Mike, what's your legacy going to be? And that's probably another changing point in our life where we've spent a little bit of time deciding what my legacy is going to be. And I think I've shared with you my thoughts on my legacy and the things that I want to do in the community. And I'll share with you when that time is right. But, so at the end of the day, we want to leave a little footprint in the community. We want to have good buildings. We're going to build apartment complexes and office buildings, and we're going to build and retain and do as great leaders have done. You look at the Irvine Company, you look at the Lewis Company, you look at the Rockefellers, you look at all the great leaders they have built and retained. And we want to build and retain, and my daughter's young.
Absolutely. And when you talk about that legacy, I love that you used your platform most recently to launch an Autism Speaks walk, and so as a mother of a child that is on the spectrum of autism with Tourette's, it's very powerful to see a leader of your influence move forward and create an effort that affects pretty much everybody. I don't think anyone today could say, they don't know about autism, or they don't know someone with autism, or are not related to someone. And I think bringing it to the forefront in the way that you have speaks to the type of legacy that you're looking to create in our community. So can you talk a little bit about what prompted that effort?
Actually, it started out, ironically, a little bit as a marketing idea by a good dear friend of mine, Mark Steinort, who had suggested to me that maybe we do a posting and donate some money to Autism Speaks every time somebody clicks on a picture of MGR with himself for Autism Speaks, for National Autism Month. And ironically, we ended up having it being retweeted, this, that, and the other. And we found out that we reached 86,000 people. And I walked into one of my buildings in Ontario, right across the hall from me, and some lady stood up to me and she says, oh my God, she says, are you Mike Rademaker? And I said, yes. So I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I'm the big, proud building owner. Yeah, naturally you know me. I'm Mike Rademaker, MGR. And so I'm thinking to myself as I walk over to her, she says, no, my sister's in Texas, and her son is autistic, and we saw a picture of you promoting autism, and it meant so much to my sister, and it meant a lot to me, and then it turned out that I met you. She says, wow, that really felt good. And then I realized, how autism or any disability, whether, there's all kinds of spectrum from Down syndromes to Tourette's to this, Alzheimer's, all kinds of things affect so many people. And there's a lot of services. My son is 6'2", 27 years old, nonverbal, autistic, severe on the spectrum. And I don't mean any of that in a negative way. I'm just painting my picture. He's mentally 26. He's 12 years old, 13 years old. He's my best friend. And I love him dearly. And what I realized is that the world, accepts my son because they have to. But the community accepts my son because they want to. And I started realizing that some of my greatest moments with my son was when I went to Vons and the checker gave my son a high five. Or when my caregiver came over and really cared about my son. And I realized that maybe we need to take a minute and not worry about my son, but maybe we need to worry about the people in the community who take care of my son and say thank you. It's easy to say thank you to the teacher, but we don't do it. It's easy to say thank you to the fireman, the police officer, the hospital worker, but we don't do that either. And ironically, the person that spends the most time with the disabled are a lot of times the caregivers. They call them respite workers, they call them, play buddies, whatever you want to refer to them. And these are people that sometimes aren't appreciated very much. They're paid slightly over minimum wage. They're thought of as just the help. And they're the ones that have made the most difference in my life. They're not helped, they're family. My housekeeper's been with us for 14 years. And I'm a single parent of a severely autistic kid. And my God, she's like my son's mother. And, some of my caregivers, Kingsley, he's 6'2", brute from Nigeria. He's like my son's brother. I got Josh out of Pomona. Josh, he's like his brother too. They've become family and friends. And so when I was talking to National Autism Speaks, and they were talking about, all the good things they're doing and how the programs they're running and, the grants they're giving to educate our kids, I decided that I was going to run an Inland Empire Walk, which got postponed with the pandemic. But our Inland Empire Walk was going to be centered in Ontario. And our focus was going to be, yes, it's Autism Speaks. But Autism Speaks for the caregiver, for the family member, and for the friend. Because, my caregiver that takes my son's hand when he's scared in public and walks with him side by side and makes him proud, that's every bit as important as learning a book. And so I want, my legacy to be that we've sent a message to everybody that we care. And that, if we work together, everybody can get along. It's not a matter of, race, creed, education, money, economic. There's none of that. We're just people. And, my God, that's what I want to do. So I just wanted my walk to be 10,000 people in Ontario screaming thank you to each other.
Right.
Not to fixing autism, but to accepting it, and to accepting Tourette's or Down syndrome. And my God, that's what I want my legacy to be. Somebody that helped people appreciate the people that give so much and aren't appreciated. Maybe focus on giving them a little bit more money. Maybe focus on giving them a livable wage. And maybe if they have a livable wage, then maybe there's a good chance that our kids will become more respectful adults and maybe need less government intervention in the future. So that's my legacy.
There we go.
Well, what do I want it to be? I don't know what it'll end up being, but I really care about the people that care about my son.
Absolutely. For those that are just tuning in, we're here with CEO and founder of MGR Real Estate, a massive commercial and residential real estate firm that's centered right near the Ontario International Airport, servicing all of Southern California. And Mr. Rademaker is bringing us up to speed on plans that he has for a autism walk. And Yvette Walker and I are just about as excited as it gets. We want to know how we can help. We're on board 100%. Mike, would you share with the audience two things? One, who came up with, and how did you come up with, instead of typically when you have this type of walk, usually it's focused on an individual or something that's a little bit more refined, where you have typical Mike Rademaker thinking out of the box, said, you know what, let's not make it about one individual. Let's make it about that entire massive support system, people that are, interacting with kids and adults and just making them feel special and helping you, as you said, as a parent. Every time somebody interacts with your son, it puts you in the best mood in the world. Nothing more important than our kids, right? So that's first. And then second, if you could talk a little bit while we have some time left on the clock, some of the financial objectives you set out and what some of the people, how they responded to your objectives. So I won't let any more out of the bag. That'll be a secret. If you share with that right now, and I think everybody will get a kick out of it. The floor is yours.
When we look at the at why I decided to do it for the people was just that simple. I need them. That's it. I just need them. I can't thank them enough. There's no words that can thank the caregiver that stays after. There's no words that can do it. And everybody's always talking about fixing my son or fixing this or fixing that or spending money on this. But gosh, it was so much easier if we just all get along. I started sharing that thought a little bit, and when I talked about the walk, everybody has a walk and they charge everybody to show up. So if you're a caregiver, they want you to show up at the walk and they want to charge you $10 to be there. Well, I don't want to charge anybody to go to my walk. I want you to come to my walk, and I want to give you a shirt and feed you.
Beautiful.
And I want to, if you want to leave a check or a donation, that's fine. We don't care. We're not there. We want you to come and have fun. We wanted to. We set it up and we reached out, and one of the very first people that stepped into it was Jimmy Previty at Frontier Homes. He wrote a significant check, no questions asked. ABM made it a national program and wrote a significant check. Prime Healthcare, been around forever, stepped up big. San Manuel Indian Reservation couldn't give enough. Protect Waste, everybody that you could think of, Lewis Homes, everybody was lining up saying, we'll do it. They weren't lining up with the typical, we had companies saying, I'm going to bring 500 people. I'm going to bring 1,000 people. We want to say thank you to the city and to Rancho Cucamonga, to Inland Empire in Southern California. We want to be the place that cares.
And we want to say thank you to you, Mr. Rademaker. Thank you so much.
This has been great. And we're going to have you back if you'll come back.
Love to very much.
Thank you so much, everybody.